All right, everybody, various news outlets are reporting that high-level discussions are going on even as we speak about the future of Debbie Wasserman Schultz as the head of the Democratic National Committee. The Associated Press reporting that those discussions include friends of the Clintons. We're also hearing that from the New York Times, that friends of the Clintons are now openly discussing whether Debbie Wasserman Schultz should be released, let go from the DNC so as not to serve as a distraction. A quote in the New York Times piece, Debbie Dingell of Michigan very bluntly saying she needs to resign before it gets worse. The Associated Press also reporting that people close to the Clintons and the Clinton campaign saying Debbie Wasserman Schultz should resign so as not to serve as a distraction. All right, joining me now, MSNBC contributor James Peterson still with me, Yamiche Alcindor of the New York Times still with me, and joining us now is the Washington Post, EJ Dionne. I'm going to turn to you first on this, EJ. Oh, and I should also note that NBC News has not and cannot confirm any of this information. We are just simply reporting what we're hearing from other news outlets as I read off of my executive producer's phone. Television, live TV. EJ, what do you make of this?
Well, I thought all day long that she was going to have to go. There are two reasons. One is the last thing you want is this story, the WikiLeaks dominating the news, and she now has a way of looking good and saying, I didn't have anything to do with this, but I'm going to take responsibility, because you can't be messing around with somebody's religion in the Democratic Party. But also, the Clinton campaign wants to turn this story to where did this come from?
Right.
They really want people to start looking at the links between Paul Manafort and the pro-Putin Ukrainians and all of that.
Yeah.
They could not make any turn in this story as long as Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the leak itself were the dominant news.
And as I can request from our producer sort of doing this on the fly, can reel back up that statement from the Clinton campaign that makes EJ's point. And while you guys are grabbing that, I'll turn to you on this, James and Yamiche, because the Republican Party had such a sort of disaster opening, right? The first 3 days of their convention were just careening from shambolic event to shambolic event, and they managed to sort of wrap it up at the end, only for Trump to come out and go crazy again afterwards. But the Democrats were sort of planning on this smooth campaign, and now this is what we're talking about.
This is the thing, there's a DNC scheduling problem, right? Because Monday is the first sort of Bernie Sanders
That's right, it's all Bernie people,
it's all Bernie people, it's Representative Ellison, it's the labor guys out there.
Raul Grijalva.
They really want Monday to be the splash, and Monday is a sort of olive branch to the left wing.
Right.
If this is the dominant story, as EJ's saying, I mean, that's going to be very, very problematic for what they're trying to accomplish with the DNC this week.
All right, so we have that statement. Let me just read that statement really quick. We can throw that into the prompter because I don't have it written down in front of me. But this is what the Hillary Clinton campaign had to say. They said Hillary Clinton has said a number of times publicly that Senator Sanders ran an extraordinarily hard-fought campaign based on a real vigorous and contested primary. As far as DWS and Bernie, that's a question to ask Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They go on to say, we're going to keep going. This is further evidence the Russian government is trying to influence the outcome of the election. And to that point exactly, Yamiche, they really want to focus on the fact that these were Russian hackers that hacked into the DNC server, but they can't get on that message as long as we're still talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Well, one of the things that you just talked about, this idea of Monday being the olive branch to the left, I have to disagree with you a little bit, only because Bernie has been saying that if he won the nomination, he was going to oust Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
He said she should go today.
Yeah, she said she should go today, but like he's been saying that also, as Bernie tends to do. He's been repeating himself, and he's been saying that before. So imagine that on the day that Bernie Sanders takes the stage, he's now saying, this is my party in some ways. Hillary Clinton, you got the nomination, that's fine, but I won the soul of the party. For Debbie Wasserman Schultz to be gone, for all the people that he has been walking around and running around the country presenting as the future of the Democratic Party, this could be actually, I think, a very powerful move for Bernie Sanders, and it could show that his supporters that we did make changes. These are concrete changes that you can see. This woman is now kind of she's the first example of the Bernie Sanders wing of the party.
But is that concrete change, or is that a personal vendetta between Bernie Sanders and Debbie Wasserman Schultz that he wins, right? I mean, I don't really understand how that would create larger change. But to Yamiche's point, do we now stand on the brink of this appearing to be a convention at which essentially Hillary Clinton has capitulated in large part to Bernie Sanders, other than the running mate, obviously, was something that he doesn't want. But even that today, on the Sunday shows, Bernie Sanders didn't endorse that running mate, the idea of that running mate.
I think it's hard to say that the person getting the nomination who picked someone she wanted, not Bernie wanted, is capitulating to Bernie.
But if she gets rid of Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Right, but if she does get rid of her, you want Bernie to be in an excellent mood when he gives that speech tomorrow night. And you'd really like some of the later interviews today. He was a little nicer to Tim Kaine. By tomorrow night, he might be nicer still to Tim Kaine. And so I think that, this, as you said, Cleveland was such a mess. And Democrats were looking forward to a real range of endorsees for Hillary Clinton, powerful ones like President Obama, Michelle Obama, Joe Biden. You don't want anything to get in the way of that.
I hate to break in, but our own Mark Murray, our fantastic political director here at NBC News, is now reporting that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has in fact stepped down as the chair of the Democratic National Committee. This is a big victory for Bernie Sanders' camp, for Bernie Sanders himself. He's been calling for her ouster for months. There has been this open charge within the Sanders campaign that the DNC was stacking the deck for Hillary Clinton. Yamiche, you covered that campaign. How big is this going to be for those people who are protesting down there saying Bernie, 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 and for the Sanders supporters?
This is going to be huge because Bernie Sanders, part of the things that people talked about him was the fact that he had all these ideas. He was always vague. He couldn't get things done. But this is something that in some ways you can say Bernie Sanders is starting to get things done. And these protesters here, these young people here, they're going to say now we have a chance to make this party our party. And I think that's really going to energize his base, and that's going to energize, I think, people that were backing Bernie Sanders to now back Hillary Clinton because they're saying that we can see moves. Even if Hillary Clinton isn't herself going to come to us, we're going to make her move, and they can tack this off. The TPP, college, like healthcare, like they're winning real things, and I think that's
and from an historical perspective, as we tick short on time, James Peterson, we have seen the Democratic Party make sea changes in its ideological firmament, and always to the right. It's moved to the right over and over and over, including when Jimmy Carter became the standard bearer of the party. He moved to the religious right. When is the last time the party has moved this decisively to the left?
It hasn't been in my It hasn't been in my lifetime. It has not been in my lifetime. And if you think about what the Clinton, if you think about what the Clinton sort of Democratic ideology represents, it represents centrist politics that drift to the right.
That's right.
This is a sea change moment. It's a huge victory momentum for the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, and also for all the leftists who really feel like the Democratic Party has left them behind.
And I think reality turned to the left in the country after the crash of 2008. You have heard Republicans start to talk about economic inequality. You have the Republican party.
It's a huge change. These two parties are completely different parties from when this cycle started. Thank you to Yamiche Alcindor, E.J. Dion, and James Peterson. Thank you all. And that is our show for this hour. Thank you for watching. Up next, my colleague Tamron Hall continues our coverage live.